Naveed, let's start with you. I want to talk about some of the autonomous projects that Boeing is working on, which seem to range from sea to air to space. Give us a rundown of what AI has made newly possible for Boeing.
Thank you, Dina, and thank you to Bloomberg for having me and including Boeing in this really great event. As you mentioned, AI is increasingly becoming more and more central to many of Boeing's product lines, and it is a technology that is absolutely central to the future of the Boeing company. In our defense business, we do operate from seabed to space, from autonomous underwater vehicles to deep space missions. Across that spectrum, we have a family of products, some of which operate fully autonomously. We think about AI as a technology tool in our toolkit to enable these missions for our customers. It is a vast range of missions, from how we sense, from how we detect, from how we avoid obstacles, and how we can improve the mission in the hands of the decision maker, which is the commander of that mission.
And Satyan, how is UPS using AI, and why is it critical to your company?
UPS is in the business of delivering what matters the most. It could mean different things to different people. But for us, having the highest service quality to deliver on time and deliver efficiently is everything for us. The act of planning, and more importantly, the cost of poor quality planning is extremely important to us. We use intelligence to help us with planning our logistics. If you break it down, logistics is nothing but the art of expecting what resources are needed, at what time, and how to get them, and how to apply them. And that the complicated choreography of all the resources are lined up to deliver a package is where we use our artificial intelligence. I'll add one more thing. Intelligence is not a born trait. You need information to be intelligent. And we are taking the journey of transforming our network into a self-healing, smart, elastic logistics network. You may heard our CEO talking about smart package, smart facility. We are trying to make all the packages smart and the facilities smart so that we can deliver what matters to our customers.
And Dr. Cephas, you made kind of an unusual career transition from being an AI scientist to becoming an evangelist. It's a switch you told me you weren't quite sure you'd enjoy. Why did you make that move, and why is your current role so critical as businesses invest more in AI systems?
Yeah, so those of you who know, growing up with an engineering background, PhD in computer engineering from Georgia Tech, switching over to anything other than that, it's like switching over to the dark side. So I finally made the big leap. I'm so happy that I did, because if you look at the core of what it means to be a tech evangelist or developer advocate, there are other words for it. It really means being able to speak the technical lingo and know that and have that background, and also be able to relate that to the everyday person. Because at the end of the day, artificial intelligence is very much so heavily based on humans. And if we aren't able to make that connection, then we're doing ourselves a disservice. So I love being able to do that. I always say I've been trying to explain to my family what I do for years now. I do this all the time. And so I think it was a perfect role, and I'm excited about all the communities and areas that we get to reach that we normally don't go to reach.
Let's drill down a little bit more into the experiences at each of your companies. Satyan, I know you're trying to automate all of your package centers and use RFID tagging. It's very technically complex. Can you tell us how it's going, how you're doing?
Absolutely. I'll take all of us back, maybe a couple of decades back. We are the ones who started using the two-dimensional labels to define a network. You have a shipping label, which has a couple of barcodes, and you scan them. It contains very preliminary information on where the package wants to go. We started the journey in the early 90s, and we automated all our package centers to read those labels. However, they are all subject to certain computational limitations. It can get damaged, it can get smeared, it can become very unreadable. So we are at the mercy of search technologies that can actually deteriorate in time. Now, come 2022, 2023, we are declaring that we are going to transform our network from scanning to sensing. What that means is we do not want packages to be scanned to let us know where they are going. We want the packages to self-declare that where they want to go, whether it is a highly critical healthcare product, or it is somebody's dog food, or it is somebody's birthday gift. It would be extremely beneficial if the package has smarts into it. So what do you do with that? So when the package is so smart, the payload is not that much. 150 bytes of data can do wonders. It can simply say, this is my identity, this is where I'm going, this is where I would like to be left, whether in the front door or in the back door, or, you know what, I'm traveling, hold it back till I come back, and by the by, make sure that it doesn't get returned. So all these things can be embedded in the smart label, and it can talk to us. Attach that with industrial automation. When the packages are going through our sorters and scanners, the industrial automation can talk to the label and make the decision. Typically, a human is good at sorting in 5 ways. You take a look at it, red, blue, green, you do it. But when you bring in industrial automation, the scale at which you can diversify the sort and then expand the throughput is tremendous. So the Smart Package, Smart Facility initiative we just started, where we are piloting in a couple of centers in the US right now, is proving to be a very, very crucial one, and a very novel one. I'll just take 1 more minute to talk about what's so novel about RFIDs. A typical use case of RFIDs are in relatively less static inventory control kind of applications right now. What we are trying is extremely close, confined metallic space where things are moving, where we are trying to achieve higher pseudo precision on where the package is. Because 2 package cars, they are like 8 feet away. We need to know whether they are going into package car 1 or 2. So we are taking up a huge industrial engineering challenge and determined to transform our network from scanning to sensing.
Let's keep talking about technological challenges. Dr. Cephas, in your former role at Amazon Web Services, you were part of the team that helped diagnose why the company's facial recognition systems were performing poorly on certain subgroups, including Black women. And you worked on trying to fix that. And you've told me that what the company learned from that is now being disseminated throughout Amazon, throughout AWS. Can you talk to me a little bit about the kind of lessons that you've learned from that kind of technological challenge?
Yes, I think a lot of it starts with the data and understanding, is your data well balanced? Is it well suited for the application that you're setting out to do? Are you identifying any biases in that data or any biases in the system itself? And understanding that there are trade-offs that you have to make. There are often variables, we call them confound variables, that you'll find in the system that you may not realize. For example, we may have one model that recognizes smiling men as women in terms of binary gender classification because maybe we only trained on smiling women and frowning men. And so there are other things like, shorter haired women may be classified as, male if your data set only represents longer haired women. So there are things that you won't know these things until you actually look. The way convolutional neural networks works, the way deep learning works in machine learning, these models, we feed it lots and lots of data to recognize these patterns. And once it outputs a solution, we should also look at what is actually going on in various tests. And setting up an evaluation system for a system is not trivial. You have to actually collect a whole nother data set that actually speaks to whatever it is you're trying to test. And you may find something totally different in that test that makes you go back and collect more test data, and it becomes an iterative process in the entire machine learning lifecycle. And so we try to do that with the FACE technology, and we were able to find some of those confound variables, improve some of those data sets, and now fast forward applying that to other services within our AI ML stack at AWS, like SageMaker, using tools like Clarify to help us balance the data, to monitor the data, to monitor your system over time, because sometimes when you deploy a model, that environment can change. And even though you didn't have biases in the beginning, biases may occur throughout the lifetime of that system. And so there's an entire study, there's entire experimentation that needs to go into, and thought process that needs to go into how do you really mitigate these biases, and several different respective fields that have come out of this area.
Naveed, many of your autonomous projects have a very high degree of difficulty. For example, Boeing's working on a plane that refuels other planes in midair, and they require a high degree of precision. How do your engineers safely account for all possible scenarios, and including ones that present what AI researchers often call, kind of borrowing a turn of phrase from Donald Rumsfeld, the unknown unknowns?
Well, that's a great question. And when we think about what AI enables in prosecuting a mission, and you used the example of our MQ-25A fully autonomous aerial refueling vehicle, we think about the enablers, the sensing capabilities, the autonomous flying capabilities, where the aircraft would have to safe itself in the event of some kind of an anomaly, whether it's in communications or other kinds of events, so we're always safe. And that's going to pace this technology completely, is the safety of these missions. We think about the boundaries of where these capabilities lie, and we sort of put the AI enabler in that box. So we know, and we feel very confident at a very high degree and a high level of confidence of these capabilities, and we'll put that AI and autonomous system sort of within that boundary. If it leaves that boundary in terms of what's happening in the mission, there'll either be some kind of human intervention or the system will safe itself. So we think about the capability with boundaries around it. We have to. And we allow the system to operate confidently within those boundaries.
Let's talk a little bit more about both planning for AI safety and fairness ahead of time, and also about what it means for your workforces. Dr. Cephas, let's start with you. When you're talking to companies as an evangelist, what do you tell them? What do you think companies should do to build ethics, safety, fairness into their AI algorithms from the start? Can algorithms be tweaked and fixed after the fact if an issue is discovered?
So there's a lot of systems obviously already in place that we use every day that probably haven't gone through the proper scrutiny of fairness and responsible AI. One example would be every time you go to the airport, I actually have a flight today, when you walk through the machine where you have to put your hands above your head and it scans your body, the TSA agent has to select if they visually think you're a male or a female. As you all know, if they select the wrong one, it sets off certain red flags, and that can be a problem for the person who's actually experiencing going through that machine. And so there are a lot of systems right now that need to go back and be reevaluated for certain areas, which should be something that is ongoing by whoever created those products. On the product conception side, yes, there are many types of trainings that, at least within my role, that we're doing. We're working with our customers, which are startups, of course, corporations. Also, internally, what are we doing to ensure that we get this right? And so amongst all of these different types of trainings that we do, there's several different areas we call under the hat of responsible AI, and we teach courses to help people understand each one of those. And so fairness is one. Like, is your system fair for one group or one intersection of groups as it is for another? There's also robustness. Are we able to fool the system with deep fakes or something that is not really what we think it is. There's also, just looking at biases in general and explainability. Is the system doing what you think it can do? Again, we're not sure what the system is learning. It could be learning something in the background. If we don't go through that test, we cannot assume unless we test. And so these are the sort of things in education that we do, throughout, and I'm very much so a part of. And we believe, and I've seen, if people know better, they do better.
And I'm wondering, Navid, how does the focus on AI at Boeing changed what type of engineers you hire and what you think of as a Boeing engineer?
Yeah, this is a great question, and it also leads us to the question of what is an aerospace engineer? A couple decades ago, we kind of thought about aerodynamics, flight sciences, turbomachinery, structures. Now, it's high expertise in things like software, electronics, AI, and autonomy. That is how we think of an aerospace engineer. And when we think about what kind of work that they're doing, the kind of training, we think about arming them and enabling them with digital tools, some of which have been developed within Boeing, some of which are available, in the marketplace, and allowing them to sort of thrive in the environment that we have, the one that they feel comfortable with, and we're open to them having ideas about new ways and new tools, and thinking about having them use AI and all of these various technologies to make them a more effective engineer. To not say, AI is going to replace this, or AI, say, we are going to make our engineers more powerful, better, hopefully, even more satisfied in the work using AI.
Satan, what has it meant for UPS's workforce? And are you building all of these algorithms in-house, or can you leverage work from other, from cloud providers or other shops?
So algorithms are our own secret sauce. Because logistics, you are not solving everybody's problem. You are solving the way you are running the company, and it's your own methods, so you are trying to solve them. So we have a group of extremely talented operational research scientists who observe the way we run the network, the way operators take care of things, and how decisions are made. And we are trying to mimic how to make it better. See, our automation and AI utilization is not to make a computer act like driving a car. Our goal is to let a human driver learn from the algorithm, and the algorithm will learn from the driver. So that when we come out with routes or suggestions, it's a practical and nobody is going to be put at risk. And more importantly, I'll just extend on what Navid was saying. Our goal is not to eliminate the human intelligence in planning. Our goal is to provide a complementing tool for humans to make the planning better. Because there will always be some end conditions where you really don't want something to go really sideways. So our act is, we are not trying to replace humans.
Since we're talking about workforce, Dr. Cephas, I wanted to ask you, and one of the issues that has been raised in the AI workforce is a lack of diversity and a need to train a more diverse group of people. Can you tell us a little bit about the project that you founded in your hometown of Jackson, Mississippi, to bring more people into the field and into the tech field in general?
Oh, absolutely. So my story in the tech industry is somewhat non-traditional. I was actually the CTO of a startup company based in Atlanta that we actually sold to Amazon in 2016. So I came into the company, Amazon, through an acquisition. And then once I that additional capital, I wanted to go back to my hometown of Jackson, Mississippi. And all these experiences that I've lived, a lot of what we work on in responsible AI can be attributed to lack of diversity and inclusion on tech teams that are developing the technology. And I wanted to, help contribute to some solution that would help others, make it a little bit easier coming down the line. And so we started a nonprofit called the Beam Path, where we do free tech help and bridging the tech gap in Mississippi. People during the pandemic complained about, not having, being able to go into work or being able to go to school. There's some places that don't even have internet. And so we're trying to help people the best we can with different resources. And then I ended up purchasing 14 acres of land in downtown Jackson, Mississippi, to build a tech hub. We're calling the up-and-coming Jackson Tech District. So really excited about that project. And of course, I have a whole team that does that, and I was able to invest in that. But I think the more that we have that responsibility, even at AWS and Amazon, one of our leadership principles is responsibility to help contribute to solving these type of problems. And I'm glad to be a part of that and to share this with all those people and many people that have reached out and supported us.
Let's continue. Let's continue the discussion of the human part of artificial, so the non-artificial part of artificial intelligence. When you're designing systems for military clients, how do you make sure when you need to keep the human in the loop, both for ethics and safety reasons? And shouldn't we be concerned about AI-driven military systems?
Yeah, this is a great question. So first and foremost, when we think about the technology of AI enabling autonomous systems for our armed forces, for the warfighter, we think about these technologies to prosecute a mission, not to determine the mission. And so how do these technologies create more insights? How do they create a better sense of the threat landscape? How do they keep our warfighters safe? And so this is not so much about a decision point on what mission, it's more along the how to prosecute a certain mission.
Satyan, let's start with you. What can you not accomplish now with artificial intelligence that you hope you can crack in the future? What's really bedeviling your teams?
UPS drivers, the brown drivers, they are our
I thought
brand
you want to
ambassadors.
replace the humans.
So
we're not talking about robot drivers.
Nope.
Okay.
Not in my lifetime, maybe. Because they are the best ambassadors and they represent. The trust everyone has developed with UPS drivers. A stranger or maybe a person delivering the package for 30 years, knocking on the door, you feel comfortable to the level that you are giving your garage code and gate codes for them to enter your facility. That's the part, we don't have any intention to do those kind of things. What other things we cannot do? There are certain hazmat handlings that are done. Perhaps they may go towards autonomous processing. So we may want to keep humans away from that. But other than that, planning and creating a network that is aware and then reacts, all in the game.
Dr. Cephas, what do you see as the next frontier in terms of what you want to see companies do better in the future? And what are the companies you work with not paying enough attention to that you would recommend they consider?
I think understanding that in technology development, considering how the product can be more inclusive, again, it's something that should happen at the beginning stages of development, and also getting the proper training around these things and not just taking it for granted that your engineers and your scientists are going to automatically know how to do this. We've seen, even at the largest of companies, that that's just not the case. And so I would also, encourage people to properly educate your customers, and if you can, even get some sort of pipeline to your end users as well. Sometimes your customers are not the same as your end users. Their experiences may be very different, and understanding what those differences are important. Also understanding that even though artificial intelligence, we think it's magic sometimes, you still have to have a human in the loop, and understanding where that human should be, and what places you should place those safeguards. So seeing more of that type of thing in the tech industry, more accessibility and inclusivity, of course, that's what I would say.
Can I add on?
Yeah,
real
please.
Quick? Great point by Dr. Cephas. You know, in aerospace, we have thought about human-in-the-loop systems for many decades. You know, we now think about human on the loop. You know, where we think about loops that are being closed, autonomous systems operating, but there is that avenue for human intervention. They operate on the loop.
So let me ask you, as you look at this, brave new world, so to speak, what is one thing that you are most excited about and one thing that you're most worried about or that you think needs to be done with care? Dr. Cephas, let's start with you.
Okay, I am so ready to, Naveed, I'm so ready to get the flying car so I can fly over all the traffic in Atlanta and places like LA and San Francisco. But I think, again, there's always concerns. Even as a technologist, I love to create cool stuff. We just like to create cool stuff. But also understanding how does that impact. Think about literally what is the worst thing that can happen with this technology? Because I can guarantee you that's what some of the end users are thinking. There are a lot of groups, especially you think about marginalized groups that have not always been at the forefront of thought for some of these technologies. And so how do you reassure them that this technology is also for them? And that's something that we should work on.
Satyan, what one thing you're most excited about, one thing that scares you?
One thing that's more exciting to many of us at UPS is the art of logistics is being demystified, and we are coming out with a lot of tools, AI-driven tools, machine learning-driven tools to help build and manage and change the network. That's exciting. But I'm also so worried that the art part of managing the network may fade away. But that's the thing, you can never replace certain things with pure technology. But the more and more tools coming in, will we impact the ability for the people to think in terms of planning maybe 10, 20 years down the line? That's the concern. But right now, technology is going to make us much better.
Naveed, what about you? Exciting and scary.
Yeah,
you can pick the order.
No, I'll start with exciting, and I think the theme is so right on with my fellow panelists because when we think of AI, another acronym is Augmented Intelligence. In terms of how we can become better at what we do, and have sort of the mundane tasks be handled perhaps by a machine, and then we can sort of climb up the value chain in how we can contribute. And certainly the exciting part is this technology around protecting our freedoms and protecting our country and our allies. And certainly the part of that, and maybe the scary part, but it's certainly the urgency part, is that we need to keep our country in the lead here. As these technologies continue to proliferate, our urgency and the need for investment and the need for speed increase. So I think it's just important to keep in mind that AI has to be a force for good.